welcome to a brand new episode of the Family Fun Force podcast. Hi, I'm Jess.
I'm Matt.
And today we are going to review Medieval, which is a re-release. It was rated T for Teen, released on PS4, originally on PS1, and released again on PSP. This is a single-player, third-person hack-and-slash platformer adventure. It was rated 67 out of 100 on Metacritic. I'll give you a little synopsis if you would like one. Relive the original adventure on PlayStation 4. The beloved fan favorite has been completely remade from the grave up, blending classic gameplay with stunning visuals, all in eye-popping native 4K. Step into the bones of Sir Daniel Fortescue, a slightly inept and long dead knight accidentally resurrected by his greatest enemy, the evil sorcerer Zarok. With a second chance to foil its greatest foe, Dan will once again set out to save the kingdom of Galamir and earn his place as a true hero. This, as exclusive on PS4, just pretty much supported on PS4 with the DualShock 4. So, what do you have for me?
Okay. So, Medieval is a third-person / first-person action-adventure game. It's actiony, it has a lot of puzzle elements too, and it's very hack-and-slash. Throughout the game, you play as the undead skeleton. What was his name?
Wow, his name is Sir Daniel Fortescue.
Sir Daniel Fortescue.
Sir Daniel Fortescue, back from the dead once again. Sorry, that was a reference to the second game, not the first one. Alright, so you were a soldier, and he got killed in battlefield, but because history is funny and likes to make heroes of people who aren't heroes, he was labeled a hero, even though he died, and then since he didn't actually kill the sorcerer comes back, and he gets resurrected to try to fix his error.
Yeah, you do this by playing through very linear levels. You advance through the levels in a linear fashion, fighting undead enemies, collecting weapons and armor, and defeating fantasy creatures, and solving fairly simple puzzles.
That's what you got?
That's what I got.
That's all you got for me?
If you wanted more, you should have given me the game mechanics, because I was not impressed.
Alright, so, since you've already gotten a hint of what Matt thinks of the game, for adults, this can be a nostalgic walk down PS1 memory lane or retro pain. It's a great throwback to the early games, and so it can be fun yet irritating. Easy to pick up and play in general. The controls are not very complicated, basic mechanics. However, restarting levels, lack of camera control, and even forced third person may be enough to drive some players away.
It's actually not forced third person, because you do have the amazingly named Dan Vision.
It's Dan Cam.
Dan Cam. See, I already messed it up.
Dan Cam. It's Dan Cam. So, no, the third person the camera isn't always forced with a third person, but there are some sections where you cannot move it. Some sections where it's just hard to control. I guess I'll cover Dan Cam now, since you brought it up already. This is a new mechanic. This was not featured in any of the other games as far as I'm aware. It's a third person over the shoulder, so I would say akin to Resident Evil's 4 and up style camera, excluding Resident Evil 7, obviously. So you can have like a better aim for stuff. So it's kind of cool to have that option, but I did notice it has like a lagging issue. I don't know if you noticed that with the Dan Cam.
I didn't use the Dan Cam because I pressed the button once and thought it was terrible.
But yeah, it would kind of refresh the entire screen, so if you were trying to do it in the middle of combat, it was kind of an issue. If you clicked it before messing with stuff, it didn't have as bad of a lagging error, but if you're going to use it, you want to start using it early, or just leave it alone, to be completely honest.
So, the combat in the game is pretty simple. You have several different weapons. You have a melee longsword, you have throwing daggers, you have a crossbow that fires like a machine gun, and a hammer. I believe there are more weapons you can unlock later in the game, but that's as far as I got.
Yeah, we didn't beat the game. Obviously, Matt wasn't a huge fan, so he didn't get very far. I'm limited on time, so I got about the same distance he did, which was We got to the pumpkin patch, I think. I don't know how far.
It's like the 6th level, 5th or 6th level.
Yeah, I don't know how far that is technically in the game because it's been a hot minute since I played the original. But if you clear out everything in each section, which is you have to kill a certain amount of enemies to collect the chalice, and you have to find the chalice, you turn in those chalices to get rewarded. And this can be like extra health vials, or you get extra weapons, boost, that sort of thing. So I believe Matt missed one of the chalices in the early levels, so he didn't get the hammer, but there's like a boosted hammer you get. So, if you clear out everything, if you're the kind of person who wants 100% levels, if you do that, you're going to get rewarded for that because you're going to get extra stuff.
Yeah, the problem, as we mentioned, it's a remake of a 1998 title. So many parts of the game aren't super clear or super well designed. Apparently I missed something in the first level. Apparently it's super helpful. So when if you play this game, you play the first level, go back to that cavern.
My recommendation is really just, if you're going to take the time playing this game, just try to walk to every edge of the map. You want to walk until you can't walk any longer, because what he missed was something he would have seen if you just kept walking in one direction.
Yeah, so use these multiple weapons to fight the enemies. The enemies come in the forms of zombies, skeletons, there were
Wolves, scarecrows.
Scarecrows.
The villagers get possessed too, so at some point you have to fight the villagers. We didn't get that far.
The way you battle most enemies is you just jam the attack button. There wasn't much strategy outside of the boss battles. Of the boss battles, I completed 2 of them, and I believe an optional one. It might not have been optional.
I believe all the boss battles are mandatory.
Okay. It felt optional. But yeah, so there was the boss in the tower, which was pretty straightforward. And then there were... Probably the most fun boss was the wolves, is what we fought. None of them are really that great, though.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the game is kind of just conserving resources, learning how to use the weapons effectively, because stuff like the superpowered hammer you get does a lot of damage, but it takes a bit to charge. So like he said, the combat controls are pretty simple, but you can press and hold for a heavy attack, which is a charged attack, which is a lot more damage, but you're taking hits from the enemy while you're holding that attack. So it's kind of just trying to figure out, is your enemy too fast and you need to use something quicker like the sword, or are they slower and you want to do more damage and use something like the hammer. Most of the enemies you want to keep away from you, so you're going to want to use the crossbow or the throwing daggers, but you have to spend money because those are things you're throwing and you have to, restock on.
But there's also enemies that are unbeatable, like the scarecrows, which you cannot kill.
But you can catch them on fire, ?
I wasn't able to, and I tried.
Yeah, you can use a certain weapon to work effectively as a torch, which is a mechanic you need to solve some puzzles. And I think it's what you need to use to fight the scarecrows, but I didn't get that far, so I cannot confirm personally.
We can talk about the puzzle solving a little bit. How did you find the puzzle solving?
I enjoyed it. I didn't really get stuck on much anything.
I noticed that in the second level, the game would pop up a prompt to remind you how to beat the puzzle, because if it didn't, I would not have gotten it at all.
I personally got more caught up on the boss battles and fighting is where I got stuck from dying. Not necessarily the puzzles were an issue for me. I didn't think they were very complicated. There was a part where right before the wolves, I was like, I don't understand why I can't jump through these things, because I needed to drop 3 rocks instead of just 2. So that's something, it's just looking at the environment properly is kind of what my issue was there. So
yeah, those rocks. I got that one the first try, but that's only because I assumed you had to go to both sides, because there were 2 sides, and it's that kind of game. Speaking of the boss battles, the first boss is the window boss, the glass golem.
Stained glass, yeah.
Or stained glass demon?
Stained glass demon.
Yeah. What'd you think of him?
Oh, it was fine.
I thought it was boring.
It was an introductory boss. I didn't expect a lot from it.
The first boss will attack you, and you cannot prevent yourself from getting injured, so you have to use your shield, but your shield has limited health.
Well, he does a pound attack and you can jump, and it doesn't affect you if you jump.
Right, but then he'll levitate and shoot you in the face.
Yeah, the shield is very effective, and your shield takes damage and can break, so you have to, take that into consideration too when you're fighting, that you're going to take so much damage on your shield, and if you only got one shield, that's all you got.
Yeah, the game likes to hand you a set number of things, and that's it.
For you newbie players, it's like Breath of the Wild.
In the game, defeating enemies will earn you currency to buy more ammo, but you only get just enough currency to keep yourself with ammo to use. I found I was always almost at zero, and almost always at zero on my ammo as well.
Yeah, you're not splurging. This is a throwback to that era of games where, you had very limited resources, and that's just how you had to play the game. That's how they made it challenging.
Yeah, it's definitely my only redeeming feature for adults who are interested in playing it is that nostalgia, because looking for new types of fun, modern adventure games have fixed a lot of these issues.
I would say, since we already covered stuff for adults, for kids, this is a fairly basic hack and slash, as the button controls aren't very complicated. Being teen rated is nice too for a spooky type game, because a lot of those games end up being M, so parents want to stay away from those. This is pseudo-violent, but there's not any gore. You just attack them, they fall down. There's not much to it. However, the typically fixed camera and sometimes difficult moving mechanics as well, as the punishing restart level with death, younger kids won't want to go anywhere near that because it's just going to be too difficult for them. Yeah, I don't know if you had an issue with going up the hill right before that stained glass demon, but I was just kind of sliding off the edges because you couldn't walk straight on it. So I don't know if you had an issue with that.
I managed to glitch that hill, and I got up it in about 5 jumps.
That's impressive. I took a bit. I died. The rocks were killing me.
Also, yeah, the rocks on that hill, you can practically ignore. They do so little damage. So once I figured out that Sir Daniel would catch ledges, not a game mechanic, just the way his feet
He's
and
got big feet.
The terrain worked, he
Take that
would
as you may.
snag instead of fall like he should have. So once I figured that out, I just pushed against the side, jumped up, got hit by rocks, but kept jumping, and I was at the top. So yeah, level design isn't the best.
It's old.
As far as younger kids, there are lots of sections. As I said before, there were prompts to remind you about objectives. Being able to read's important for some sections.
Yeah, I should mention these prompts are either books you physically read in the environment, or there's demons that talk to you, which are funny. One of my favorite parts of the game when I originally played it.
The talking demons were about the only thing I cared about, and they were too few and far between.
So personally for me, having already played the original and the PSP version, I obviously enjoyed it. I'll start with the fact that the opening cinematics are lovingly recreated in 4K, and for those who have played it before, it's fantastic. Watching the intro in the main menu screen was verbatim the original game, and it was great. It was like playing the game again, but the graphics were totally updated. I love the music and the overall feel of the game. I was always a big fan of the humor, and it's been carried over in the cutscenes and voice lines, as I mentioned, the demons you talk to. And we already covered it, but the new mechanic that I occasionally used was a dam cam. I like that they had something new to add to a remaster. Even if it wasn't something big, it was cool to have that option there. I think that's what I got for what I liked. What did you like, if anything?
If anything. Ha. So, I don't know, the jokes got a chuckle out of me on occasion. Like I said, the demons are kind of funny. I shouldn't call them demons, they're golems. I think they did a good job with the graphics in the remaster. I don't recall anything about the sound design. Nothing stood out to me. I guess it wasn't annoying. The graphics were pretty good. I felt for the most part you could see everything you needed to on the screen. I wasn't at least looking for the next path. The bosses were super straightforward. Sometimes when the game takes control of the camera, it's hard to see enemies, especially leading up to the wolves boss. you basically can't see them at all. Yeah, those are things I liked.
It's fine. We're going to get to things you didn't like in a second here. So for me, some things that were not as enjoyable were the obvious flaws, restarting levels on death, camera issues, and occasional glitches. I recall getting stuck in a wall right before the wolf boss fight, which was annoying because I died like 3 times and it kept glitching in the same spot. It was right where I had to push one of the rocks. I kept getting stuck in the wall. Did you get stuck in this wall?
Yes,
on the right-hand side?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, so it wasn't just me. I should mention Dan Cam I referenced to does cause a lag, which I did mention before, which can, like I said, don't use the Dan Cam mid-combat. If you're going to use the Dan Cam, start it before combat because it'll lag out. And it whips the camera around, so like if you were pointing one direction, you're like immediately pointing the opposite direction for some reason. I don't know why. It can be a challenging game. Sometimes you have to learn to fail before you can proceed. You know, you need to figure out what the best weapons to use, spend your gold wisely on ammo, remember when to expect enemies, just to lower damage taken, because in the leading up to fighting the wolves boss, there's enemies that pop up. They literally just randomly spawn when you're walking down a hall, and if you're not ready for them, you take quite a bit of damage, and this kind of messed me up for the wolf battle, so I ended up having to drop my shield early so I didn't get as much damage from them, let them run past me, and then hit them, because then I wouldn't take as much damage, and that's what helped me beat the wolf bosses on the second try, so I only had to try that one twice. Overall, I enjoyed it, obviously, but what didn't you like about it?
The camera. I've kept quiet about the camera as much as possible until now. The camera has zero smooth. It's constantly getting hung up on things. It responds to the tiniest inputs from the controller. As Jessica mentioned, switching to the Dan Cam is jarring. Hence, I only did it once. And after playing, I played Medieval in 2 sessions. One was like, 2.5 hours? And I played only like half an hour the second time. And both times I had splitting headaches within like 15 minutes. If I didn't have those headaches, I probably could have tolerated the game a bit more, to be honest. I also wasn't a fan of the enemy design. I felt it was lazy most of the time, relying on not much. I mean, everything could pretty much get killed with the longsword, or it couldn't get killed at all. Those are my biggest complaints.
Oh, I guess I expected more than that. Okay. Well, yeah, I will definitely say with the camera, it'll pop up in the left-hand corner to let you know when you can't use the camera, as is custom for some older games to do. It shows a little icon with the X over camera, which, you know, it was kind of like when you were inside buildings and stuff that you can't touch the camera at all. I found myself a lot of times literally just not touching the right stick, not moving the camera, and just walking where I needed to go and leaving it alone. That kind of helped me not get disoriented, I guess. I didn't find myself getting a headache at any point in time, but I guess maybe I'm just kind of used to that style of game.
Yeah, I play more first-person type games than Jessica normally does. I prefer having direct control of the camera, so me just leaving my hand on the right stick is second nature. I can say, if you don't mess with the camera, it is a lot more gradual, as it relies on Dan's motion to pick its direction, but it's just never fast enough, and with enemies not strongly predicting where they're going to go, you often want to have them in frame to be able to hit them.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely, especially when you're using the throwing knives or your crossbow, you want to have a good aim on that, because there is a target locking system, which I guess we didn't really touch upon, but Dan will automatically lock on enemies with like a little red arrow pointing to them, and you can switch between enemies, but it's still sometimes very hard to see where you're throwing stuff, and there is a certain distance you have on the arrows or the throwing knives, so you have to pay attention with that. And if you can't see where you're throwing stuff, it's not going to help you at all. So the camera does impact the ability for you to actually use your weapons properly, I would say.
Yeah, when Dan's auto-targeting an enemy, like little will-o-wisps show up around it and it glows red. And the point at which those appear around an enemy isn't super consistent. So even if you and the enemy are stationary, if the camera is easing, it's enough to break that lock. which was real annoying because I often just like toggled the target enemy button rapidly, or I just gave up and just pointed in the general direction and hope I hit. The crossbow, which fires like a machine gun, does have a ricochet mechanic, which is a little helpful, I guess. I never really used it creatively. I often used it as just a way to guarantee I would hit something by shooting around them, and it would often be enough to bounce into their hitbox. I was hoping to see more like creative, like shooting around corners with it, but with the terrible camera, that was never an option.
I came into this realizing it was a remaster of a remaster, and I wasn't expecting a ton of improvements, so I enjoyed what I played.
See, I didn't realize it was 2 levels deep there. I thought it was just a remaster of the 1998 version. And like I was expecting a level of old-fashionedness, but I don't know, this was a lot for me.
It's been a while since I touched the PS1 or the PSP version, but I would say it didn't seem like there was a whole lot that got changed other than the graphics. As I said, if you played the originals, you're going to enjoy this. You know, when it comes to my personal feelings on the game, if you like retro or remakes like the Spyro, Reignited, or Crash Insane trilogy, I definitely recommend this. Or if you've played the original on PS1 or PSP, I definitely recommend checking it out. I got it when it launched, and I think it was only $30. I honestly can't remember. So initially, this was supposed to be our October review. We had some technical issues. It didn't get through, which is why I started playing the game when I got it. And I don't remember a lot from when I was playing it then. And then I try to catch up to Matt recently. But in general, I would say it's a decent play. I would strongly recommend it if you like this type of game. As for kids, I don't know. It could be hit or miss with them. Again, if they want a spooky type game that's got some violence in it, that's cool. If they're fans of The Nightmare Before Christmas, they might like this game. But price-wise, it's a pretty good buy.
Yeah, on my end, if you're interested in action, adventure, hack and slashy kind of things, my go-to is always Jak and Daxter. I also, if you want something from this era, Crash Bandicoot, Super Mario.
Literally anything else.
Literally anything else that came out in 1998. I also think, I don't remember if it was PlayStation 2 or 3, but they remastered Gauntlet. I wouldn't call it like an amazing game, but compared to Medieval, I think you get a lot of the same benefits with the sort of spooky vibe and the simplified combat. But I think it was a much better developed game and had stronger mechanics overall. Although the story is a lot weaker in Gauntlet.
I strongly recommend this game.
I'm sure you heard me all this time. If you like the original, or if you've played Gauntlet and you want something not as good, play this, I guess. Otherwise, no. There are other better games out there, especially for younger people who aren't going to have the nostalgia factor.
I don't have much else to say other than I would like to plug the fact that if you are a Medieval fan, they released about a month and a half after the game released a digital and physical copy of a comic book, which I personally have not bought yet, but I plan on getting it. It's only like $11 on Amazon. So graphic novel, Medieval, sweet looking. Get it.
Yeah, I'd probably read, like, the lore was interesting enough, I'd probably read the comic. Not interesting enough for me to pay for it, but if you get it, I'll read it.
Woo. So what are we going to do next?
Well, next up, we're looking at some tabletop analog board games.
Board games. So you're not bored. Board games.
Yep, so next episode, we're going to look at a few board games that we got over the holidays and let you know what we think.
Cool. See you then. Ta-ta.
Have a nice day.
Honestly, I think we were like done.